Hello, everyone. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today I'm traveling and I'm in a little different spot, and I'm hoping all the production will go smoothly as we have an incredible production person named Tony Sweet, who's I've been with for 6 years now. So hopefully he's going to be able to take this the way it should with Zoom over wherever you are. So thank you, Tony. And I want to welcome my guest today, Dr. Bob Weil, who's just one of the most incredible people. You're going to love hearing from him. I was on his show. He has a radio show on BBS Radio, one place, and also UK Health Radio called The Sports Doctor. And well, he's going to tell you all about what he does. He's a podiatrist, so this is an area of the medical field that we haven't really covered. So we're going to hear about that as it relates to your feet, as they relate to your health, and of course your athletic ability. So welcome, Dr. Weil.
Hey, Michelle, it's great to trade radio shows with you. Michelle, who's a guest of mine just a couple of weeks ago on the Sports Doctor. Again, when you're talking anything ageless or timeless. So again, I could start right out by singing the song, The Foot Bones Connected to the Ankle Bones, Connected to the Knee Bone. So many postural problems are foot related, whether it's someone who's a senior and we're trying to prevent falling. It's one of my famous figure skaters, maybe doing a triple or a quad jump and trying to land, with 6, 7 times their weight. So the world of sports podiatry is one that incorporates all these areas. My specialty is youth sports.
Yeah.
And seniors and, superstars to grandmas, Michelle.
I love that. And that's great. And just a little bit about you before we start into the all your wonderful activities and focus in your medical career and podiatry, but also, of course, in podiatry as it relates to sports. So just tell us a little bit more about your journey. How did you get 45 years as a radio host, and what is it that's made you so passionate that you've stuck with it for
the adventures of live radio. Oh wow, the guest is missing. They got the wrong time zone, et cetera, et cetera. I was very fortunate in the late 70s to meet the late great sports trainer Bob Guida.
Yeah.
In Glen Ellen, Illinois, Sports Fitness Institute, with his wife at the time was a champion weightlifter and osteopathic physician. And Bob was the guy that the Jimmy Connors and the Walter Paytons and the John McEnroes and the Bill Buckners and the superstars and everybody in between. He was the strength and conditioning coach of the Olympic volleyball team. And Bob had a tremendous connection with the role of the foot. He'd say, I want the athlete's feet to be like a cat, where they're almost on the beach and they're working all these areas. Because whether you're coming down from a rebound, or again, you're taking off for the first base, or you're moving, hey, you're a pickleball player, and all of a sudden you find out, wow, this is physical. So I ended up being his podiatrist. And over those years, I had the good fortune again to add orthotics, whether it was to McEnroe or Tracy Austin was one of my great, now the Wimbledon is going on. And so we're all excited. But I just am celebrating the 15th year of the young boy from Illinois, Evan Lysacek, who was 9.5 years old when I put orthotics in his figure skates. It's one of my real specialties. And maybe 12, 13 years later, he was the Olympic gold medalist. He was hosting Dancing with the Celebrities, etc. So the challenges of youth sports, Michelle, whether you are a parent, you're a coach, and you have a talented young son or daughter, you know what the pressure is like. Mom, I got to play. My knees are killing me, et cetera, et cetera. So I got involved on the radio side because Guida was involved locally with the Bears. He was seeing Gary Fancic and some of the Mike Ditka. You see Mike Ditka. And I then joined the College of DuPage and the famous WKDC blues jazz station. And they had specialty shows. And I think the sports doctor came on after the lawnmower show. I'm not sure, Michelle. I have to look it up. But I did 20 years there, and I've probably had over 1,000 guests in every area you could think of. Again, from the I had a Taoist on 2 months ago talking about the 3,000-year-old rules that some of them make as much sense today as they do. Yesterday, I had on a neuroscientist talking about hand-eye coordination. He worked with the elite fighters, etc. So that's been the journey that I've been on, and I get a chance again to share with my audiences all these topics. Whether it's the world of youth sports, whether it's the world of the 80-year-old, you want to keep walking, you want to be ageless, don't you?
Well, that's what we're all about.
Yes.
Time so
Yes.
What's changed in the 45 years? What
Awareness, and I've been a big part of it. I'll take some credit.
Yeah,
The awareness, whether it's the importance of kids still having fun in youth sports, whether it's the importance, or are you in the right shoe for your foot mechanics? Hey, you're a dancer in 2-inch heels. Let's talk about that. It was one of my famous articles, Women and High Heels. So the awareness of what we're talking about, again, whether it's children having a good time, we're all aware of the overzealous yelling parent on the sidelines in youth sports. We're also aware over the years with gymnastics, the abusive medicine and some of these other things that have gone on. My book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents. I co-authored it with a famous volleyballer, Sharky Zartman, who's had a radio show for years. So awareness of whatever we're talking about, education. Again, whether I'm dealing with the world of coaching or the world of athletic training or parenting. And, the new stuff in youth sports, whether it's the pay the young athletes, wow, what are they going to do with that? And some of these other challenges. And the reason I co-authored the book, Michelle, is the epidemic. Write that down, everybody, in capitals. The epidemic of youth sports overuse injuries. Too much. So I call it the terrible twos. And again, if you're a young, talented 10, 12-year-old tennis player, figure skater, ballet, you're doing it 10 days a week. And we start running into all sorts of problems. And Gaida, again, was famous for training and working with these young athletes, whatever their sport was. And the two things he paid big attention to? You write this also down. The two exercises you want to include, whatever your level or age or sport. Number one is strengthen your feet and ankles. Include strengthening your feet and ankles. The number one injury in sports, period, are ankles. Forever. And the abuse. So you want to strengthen your feet and ankles. And number two, work balance. Whether you're 80 years old and you're working with standing on one foot at a time, or you were in Gaida's clinic balancing on the mini tram. With whatever sport you were working with. And these areas of awareness and education, we've had a lot of good news, but I got news for you. If we're talking, for example, diabetes, obesity, childhood obesity, all which I featured for decades, we're treading water. We're in the same mess.
Except do you feel that the semaglutides are offering a rather cutting edge?
I'm excited. Let's not get overzealous here.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a new category. It's called sports pharmacy.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Water and Wellness. Water and Wellness is one of the best companies to find purified water. They have a countertop system that I use, and I travel with it all the time. So I would highly recommend you look at that. If you use the Ageless code, you'll get a 10% discount. waterandwellness.com/pages/ageless and timeless. That's how you can order to get the discount. So visit waterandwellness.com or call 877-296-6880 to learn how to take control of your drinking water and learn about all those natural additives to optimize your health and longevity.
Yeah.
Jessica's one of the champions. She's also a champion weightlifter, Jessica Biel. And we've talked about these challenges, whether we're talking about CBD. I have championed marijuana and in sports for decades, as far as whether it was a pain reducer or it helped you sleep better, et cetera, et cetera. So now the world of regenerative medicine, the world of, again, my friend for 100 years, Bob Goldman, the superstar in anti-aging. I did podiatry with his National Academy of Sports Medicine maybe 40 years ago when he was first starting. And Bob gets thousands of people together with the anti-aging world for decades. And a big part of it, like you said, ageless, timeless, is this whole, peptide related, biohacking related. I include it in the mental game. I pay huge attention on the sports doctor to the mental game. Whether I have psychiatrists on as guests and have contributed to my book is the great holistic psychiatrist, adult and child psychiatrist, Dr. Denise McDermott. And she, of course, uses drugs when indicated, but she's huge in the whole mental side, in the whole area. So regenerative medicine, we're excited about. I know that's a field that you're very involved with. The Best Doctor magazine and your column, and our friend Rob Fletcher, the Hall of Fame martial artist. And for years on my show, he'd pay big attention to we got to get these girls and women learning how to protect themselves. And I was a big fan of it. And now he's doing a lot of great things. So we're both on the same team in a lot of ways. You're an educator.
Well, you want to make a difference in a world that is seeking answers, and many people
good luck
not find the solutions to their issues, particularly not with the allopathic model, which is really looking to cure symptoms and not the root cause. So,
well, I'll tell you something. I talk about it's a big deal. Again, you could write it down. It's called the new medicine. It's very simple. The new medicine is, number one, eat smarter. I'll leave it up to you in the category. We could talk for 20 hours, right, on eating smarter. Number two is keep moving. Whether you want to go to the gym, whether you like yoga, whether you want to include Tai Chi, whether you want to do whatever, we want to include keep moving. Number three is a big one. We're talking about it. Reduce stress. Learn how to include rest and recovery. Whether you want to be a meditator, whether you want to talk mental training, the late great sports psychologist, Dr. Jim Vickery, back in the 80s, Michelle, he couldn't use the word psychology. And he worked with the teams. He worked with the colleges, Northwestern. The word psychology, what do you mean? You think there's something wrong with me? So that's the new medicine. And it includes a lot of attention to where your world is, which is new to many. It's new to medicine in a lot of ways, yet it's been around semi-forever, right?
Well, if you look at Ayurveda and
Define Ayurveda, right?
Yeah, and some of those Asian or Eastern medicine, they've been doing it for thousands of years, and acupuncture. But somehow or other, when it gets become mainstream in America, we think it's brand new. It's something we're discovered.
Soft tissue therapy. Bob Guida, he called it vibrational medicine.
That
he was doing. He was doing the same kind of deep massages. My international guest, friend, colleague, also a teammate of mine in the National Fitness Hall of Fame, Dr. James Stockton, internationally known sports.
He's a very close friend. He's a very close friend of mine in Chicago.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, the sports doctor,
team doctors.
Team doctors, I'll get it right. He was on my show 3 weeks ago. Oh, he was on 100 years ago.
Yeah, he's a good friend.
This is interesting, Michelle. The titles of what was then for many years called alternative medicine. I've had all of them. on
Mm.
my show. I had many of them contribute to the book. Again, Eastern medicine, which was whether it was Tai Chi, Chinese medicine we featured, compared to what we've been stuck with in a lot of ways, which is, again, it's an injection, it's a pill, it's surgery, it's treating the symptoms, it works 12 hours. But when we had that title, alternative medicine, it was adversarial. So I spent 10 years on the show, give or take a few weeks, talking with all sorts of people, and we said, let's call it complementary
Oh,
medicine.
that's good.
Yes, and now we're all on the same team. And I think, again, these areas that you're very involved with, again, whether it's the highest level of sports performance, and my guest on the radio show yesterday, Dr. Vasquez, whether he's working with the top elite fighters in the world or he's talking to business people, he's all about these leadership skills, that side of it also. Um, and we try to pay a lot of attention to communication for sports parents. And again, the more talented your son or daughter is. I just had a feature article in a magazine that's a supporter of mine, LER, Lower Extremity Review, just celebrated their 16th year, and their great publisher, Rich Dubin, has been a numerous guest of mine. I've written numerous articles for him. One was pickleball is physical back in 2020 when no one knew how to spell pickleball. But the recent one was the prodigy sports. And it was all about specialization with these kids, when every doctor and parent and athletic trainer wants boys and girls to play numerous sports, want them to use different parts of the body, have different experiences, and that's what we want them to do. And that's great unless you're a gymnast, right? Or a ballerina, or a figure skater. And now even soccer and tennis. And my colleague down there in the Panhandle baseball, where the team doctor of the Yankees, Dr. Chris Ahmad, has been a guest of mine numerous times. And he said, guess what, Dr. Bob? 20% of Tommy John surgeries on teenagers. Whoa, where is all this overuse?
It's overused.
Yes, elbow surgery on young pitchers and baseball players. Like I could say to you, knee problems with all the young volleyballers, or the idea that, knee problems in females are about 5-1. So we want to pay big attention to the fact that, yes, people want to be as ageless and as timeless as they can. I'm a big fan. But you got to be smart, and you got to pay attention to what your physical or mental history is. You want to pay attention to the fact that you're not playing a court sport with running shoes on, for example, and that you are even fit properly. Would it surprise you that over 40% of our population are not fit properly with their shoes?
Yeah, I know. And so, okay, so as long as you brought that up, dive a little deeper into podiatry. And how did you decide to be a doctor of podiatry first? What was it motivated you and made you so passionate?
Yes, I wanted to stay away from Vietnam as much as I could. And medical school, yes, medical school was one of the areas that I was always interested in, and maybe dentistry. And podiatry came on my radar as something that was so broad-based. Again, it could be the best athletes in the world, or it could be senior citizens. It could be children. It could be diabetics. The first profession to see diabetes many times is the foot doctor, because that's where the symptoms start.
Of course, yeah.
So it was something that I found very, very interesting. And then again, I was very fortunate. After I got out and I started paying any attention, I ran into GIDA. And all of a sudden, I got involved at the most exciting levels of these athletes and what they were facing. And the idea, which is, because I'll tell you something which is interesting. Your listeners, many people will say, does my son or daughter, or do I need orthotics? And for everybody listening, orthotics are prescription inserts to properly align optimally the foot and ankle.
Mm-hmm.
because the foot and ankle affect everything. If you've had chronic back problems, it might not be caused by your flat feet, but it ain't helping you in many instances. So the idea, and then foot inserts now are a big deal. They're all over the internet. You can go to Walgreens. There's 1,000 inserts. They are not prescription devices.
So you don't recommend them?
Oh no, that's what I use 100%. I use them as something you could use for a week or two
Mm-hmm.
until we get you into what's optimum.
Mm-hmm.
And again, even if we're not, you don't have to be a superstar. You might be someone, hey, Dr. Weil, I run 5 days a week and I have shin splints.
Mm-hmm.
Or, my big problem, plantar fasciitis, the arch of the heel. Common problem. So if you have, for example, inherited flat feet,
Mm-hmm.
or you've inherited the opposite. This is much less common, high arches. Although high arches might be connected to John McEnroe, and that's why he's quicker than everybody mechanically. So the idea, again, of paying attention to what's been your history, whether you were a high school athlete, whether you're looking to get back into activity. So podiatry was a great fit. And then I started to learn not only about the surgical side, whether it was the hammer toes and the bunions. Women ask all the time, surgically, I have seen 75-year-old grandma, the enlarged, thick bump on the side of the big toe.
Mm-hmm.
The big toe is the lever of your feet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet you 50% or more of your listeners have heard the terms pronation and supination.
Oh, of course.
They are normal motions of the feet and ankles.
Right.
And they have a few important jobs. One of them is shock absorption. Every time you land on your heel, you're generating 50% of your weight.
Right.
Once you bear weight, that stops.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're pushing off. So there was all of this excitement. And then in the late 70s, I met Candy Brown, and she was very involved she was a figure skating coach. She was a former champion. And she said, this young boy in your neighborhood, Glen Ellen, this kid's flying all over the ice, doing double and triple jumps. He ended up being an Olympian, the late, great Angelo D'Agostino. And Candy was paying very, very big attention to, these young kids. Are we getting them strong enough? And the answer was no way. They were doing the activity. I have 10-year-olds. They do double jumps all day, 5-6 days a week. So the concept of the importance of the feet and how they affect all these areas was very, very exciting. Podiatry was getting included over the years in the Olympics. It was getting, part of the team, the orthopedic surgeon, the chiropractor, the soft tissue therapist. And again, Bob Guida was very famous for vibrational therapy. Think of a massage. Think of a deep massage gun. Yeah. Think of it being very therapeutic for whatever the injury happens to be. And Stockton also manufactures his own team doctors. Again, deep, Stockton flies all over the world to see athletes. He worked with the Wiggles. Should be talked about that. He got the guy from... I hear the whole story. Remember the Wiggles, right, everybody? Oh, yeah. My kids loved them.
Yeah. Well, he actually got me tickets from my nephews Wiggles were going to be in Atlanta, and I had some family members there. So he was able to get them to get backstage and meet them. And it was pretty exciting I think I became the favorite aunt at that moment in time because of my ability to get them into that concert. But the Thumper is one of his he originally developed, and then he's got more advanced models now of the massage. But today PEMF, electric magnetic therapy, that's become the darling of the sports world or even just for weekend.
I was into magnets in the 90s. We were even using stationary magnets. I still find if someone says, I have a therapeutic magnet patch, will it help stimulate healing? The answer is almost always. It's not magic, but we've had great success. We used magnetic insoles for years. I put them on top of orthotics. In America with the hype and the whole thing, but was just a little much in a lot of ways. But, one of my famous guests, Gary Reinl, who wrote the famous book Ice.
He's going to be on my podcast.
Tell him hi. He's been on my show a dozen times.
Rob just is connecting us right now. Rob.
Yes. He was in the crosshairs of the whole sports world because he was saying it's a fake.
Yeah.
All for numbing.
Yeah.
Gaida was when Gaida said stretching could be harmful. We're overdoing it. And both of them, I used to laugh at both of them, that people were out to get you, man, because you're going against religion. But he also worked with every professional team, and he worked with every Olympic team, Gary Reinl. And he was always involved with stimulating the areas surrounding the injured joint. So if your ankle was injured, he'd have you working your toes, bending your knees, and he represented one of the country's leading electromagnetic therapeutic pieces for as long as I know him. And it is a big field. And I still find ultrasound, high-speed ultrasound, it's been around forever. One of the most successful ways to calm down inflammation and injury. And we've played with them all. One of my podiatry colleagues, Dr. Ben Pearl in Virginia, very big into, again, shock therapy. Also very therapeutic. When you're dealing with dancers or show members or athletes who are saying, Michelle, I got to get better yesterday. What can you do for me? Good luck to you. But all of these things, hands-on. This is why I had, Sports Fitness Institute was owned by a chiropractor who hired Gaida. And chiropractic was always ahead of whether it was exercise or diet and non-drugs.
Well,
and if I've had one chiropractor on my show over whatever the heck it is, I've had 50.
But
one way.
don't compare the chiropractor to the osteopath, which I've always
Great question. The osteopath is an MD with chiropractic skills.
Right.
So doctors that I have on from the Olympic world, Tony Liazzo, he's a local doc. He's been on 100 times. One of the orthopedists from Jersey, Dr. Sean McMillan, the DOs. A DO is every much an MD in their specialty, whether it's orthopedics, whether it's ophthalmology, whether it's foot, ankle, et cetera, et cetera. The difference is, and that's why we had one on the Bears since the beginning, the hands-on. Now, when it comes to adjustment and manipulation, and if you want to split hairs between the DO and the orthopedic and the chiropractor, but here's what's funny, and I tell my friends who are team doctors, orthopedists, both the chiropractor, highly skilled, and the DO, highly skilled, are better analysts in so many ways than the orthopedist. The orthopedist is a surgeon. He ain't somebody who's picking up that the guy's got an eighth-inch shortage, and again, leg shortage and all of these things. So this is why the chiropractor who would sing the song and the DO, hip bones connected to the backbones connected to the knee bone, and I'm in the background singing the foot bones connected to the ankle bone, and then we meet in the middle. So people need to understand there's nothing negative medically about a DO in their specialty. They are the same as the MD, and that's always been a hassle in one way or another, and still to this day you have that question. I'm glad you brought it up.
So of all the athletes that you've interviewed or you've known over the years, who would you, if you were doing an Academy Award or an Olympic level of the best of the best, who would
Yannick Noah.
Who's that?
Yannick Noah was the great Frenchman who won the French Open and became so famous that he had to move to New York in the 80s. And because he was the French champion in tennis in Roland Garros, and he became a superstar. Then he became a superstar in music. His son Joachim became a great player for the Chicago Bulls. But in of all the athletes we saw, as well as some of the volleyballers, the international players, all are Gary Fensick, a defensive back with the Chicago Bears, was another one. As again was McEnroe. who was quicker on his feet than so many others. But Yannick was also maybe even more limber, athletic. And when we think back, again, if you think using McEnroe as an example, McEnroe unzipped his racket, was the best in the world. He said, I don't got to train. Tracy Austin had pretty bracelets. Both of them borrowed my car when they were here to train with Guida at one time or another. My kids loved both of them. They weren't best friends, but they spent a lot. Tracy Austin spent the whole summer trying to come back and win the U.S. Open in the 1980s. But she wasn't an athlete. When Martina, either was Chris Everett, they all learned. And Guida was one of the ones who said to these tennis players, you don't understand. You got to be one of the best athletes, not just tennis players. Now, I don't know if you're a tennis fan, everybody.
I'm a big tennis fan and a former, or not a former, I still play, but tennis is one of my favorite sports.
Big time. You got to tell, okay, 2 weeks ago, about the unbelievable final. And as a matter of fact, they're playing tomorrow in the semifinals. Djokovic, of course, is playing Sinner, but Alcaraz and Sinner, 5 hours, 29 minutes. Now, I have a contest on the Sports Doctor once or twice a year. I've done it for years. It's a fun contest. And it's exactly what you asked.
Well, did you hear about the women's Wimbledon, that the American upset?
I watched it. Oh, I watched some, yes. And
what did you think of her?
Well, Anya's a head case. The number one player in the world. Saratoma. Yes, as great a player as she is, she's handled it. She didn't lose it mentally, but she had a chance. And she, again, somehow, this young American who's been in this crazy experience, she stepped away from the game for a while.
Yeah.
People said, where are the Americans? Now they're all over the place. So this kid, and I watched her interview, The Mental Game. And, in talking about that moment, again, the word mindfulness, which in sports medicine is such a big deal. Medicine didn't know how to spell mindfulness 20 years ago. You know what it means?
That's a very interesting statement.
Be in the moment.
Yeah.
And you is the net. You're on the foul line, Michelle. Oh, you're serving for the match. You've never been there before and you can't see straight. You're so nervous. So this young American beating the number one player in the world, again, who has got some challenges, keeping her temper under control and all of these things. And if you're a player, you understand the great Lou Vickery, who pitched for the Yankees and Cardinals in the 60s. And I'm bringing him up because he's a 80s champion, tennis doubles champion.
Oh.
And he had a podcast, which is What's Your Racket? And I would show up, the Sports Doctor's in. But Lou had a show on the Panhandle for years called Lou in the Morning. He's a very successful businessman. He's written 25 books. But his big point that I would be on, we were talking overuse with these kids, with these baseball players playing, 10 days a week. But in the world of tennis, he was paying such attention, again, to whether it was sportsmanship on the left, John McEnroe, why do you, all that screaming and ranting and raving. When I first met John McEnroe, he was on the phone with his father wearing a torn top coat. He was like 20 years old. He came in to see Guida. We were seeing him. He was arguing with his father on the phone about who knows what the heck it was. But, the mental game and the idea that, senior tennis is a big deal. So you might want Lou Vickery on as a guest sometime because he's an 80s champion. And what does it take to still be playing when you're 80 years old? We talk about his topspin backhand.
Well, we have, you mentioned when we spoke earlier about Rod Laver and all of them.
Yes.
Well, in that whole generation, right, of Jimmy Connor was a little later, but they all still play, right?
Oh, yes, but none of them lifted weights. And they didn't pay big attention to nutrition as much. And they were 5'10", 185 pounds. Now you're looking at these guys routinely. This kid's 6'8", this other kid. And it's just so the evolution, including the female athlete. You and Tracy Austin said, I never lifted weights or trained. That's what Guida got her head into. which is you better be an athlete if you want to compete with Martina. And Chris Everett learned the same thing. And of course, today it's a whole new world, and it includes is that player in the best. How much have they been evaluated for ankle? How much are they strengthening and training? It's an exciting world.
Why do you think the athletes have gotten so much taller? What's contributed to that?
Maybe they're taking your peptides. I think overall, whatever the evolution is, there's a tremendous evolution in the training of these kids. How much that invigorates growth is a great question. But with a lot of attention, that's why I have sports nutritionists contributed to my book. And as people I talk to all the time, RDK, another great guest for you, Katie Davis, a sports nutritionist or sports pharmacist. That whole world about women and their menstrual cycles and nutrition and hormones and all of these things that became such a big deal. So all these things were added to the mix. Now, if we had a time machine, we could go back 20 years and let's go back and let's say that none of these things were added. No one ever became a better athlete. No one paid big attention. They still had a stake. Nobody paid attention to rest and recovery, proper sleep. Yeah. Huge. Yesterday, that's all he talked about with neuroscience. Would they be the same size? Great question. I think the world of calories and nutrition has made a huge difference. I mean, you see a 6'8" shortstop. What are you, crazy? You see a 6'11" kid in basketball shooting. Look at the WNBA athletes. Here's a funny story. It's only 30 seconds. Bob Guide and I are walking into a sports softball facility. Again, it's the 80s. We're listening to we're working with both men's and women's fast pitch teams. We're seeing some of these kids. We're listening to the crack of the bat, which could take your hat off. Whoever was hitting in the aisle, next to us, then we're walking in. And he was mentioning the name of 3 guys in a row. He walked in, there's 2 of the girls who were shortstops. And Guida sits down, he says, these girl athletes are just unbelievable in their growth as athletes. When you were a kid, maybe you played pom-poms if you had sports to play in many ways. So it's a great science, and people, again, whether it's the whole world with Goldman, the whole world with people like Stockton, my organization, the National Fitness Hall of Fame, Jack LaLanne. We just had a member of our National Fitness Hall of Fame 2 weeks ago competed as a senior, 64 years old, on the American Ninja.
Whoa.
Yeah, man. He tried his best. And the training he was doing, you wouldn't believe it. Wouldn't believe it. He was on TV 2 weeks ago. He's coming back, trying to play. So the evolution, and I think the things that you do and have talked about, I'm sure many of your guests, when you're talking top doctors, yes, top doctors are still engorged with the regular doctors that we're all used to. And our healthcare system stinks in so many ways.
Right. And it's
so many.
Hopefully there's going to be changes with the.
I have experts on all the time at every level, whether it's the financial level, whether it's the teaching level, whether it's the learning level. I have mayors on, I have others on. There's a lot of attention and awareness, but one time, 25 years ago, I wanted to get all schools locally to include walking in the curriculum. And the politics that I ran into.
Really?
Yes.
Why was that? Why walking?
It's still safe. And can they be inside? And what if they're in a neighborhood? And what if there's a problem? And changing the curriculum. And I said, leave me alone already. But we talked about it. And it is being included in a lot of ways. You have more anxiety in teenagers than ever. And my holistic psychiatrist said it's the internet world and it's the pressure. But she likes, and this is a big point because I never included it. We all know the hassles of the internet screens on our kids and us. She said, no, we have to look at it as entertainment and as a sideshow.
Mm.
So I allow my children, even if they're athletes, to accept that, yes, they're on the phone all the time, but they're using it as some sort of escape from their parents or their coaches. And she's had great success with that when you think about it. But this is what's piling on all of us. Now, if you add the pandemic to the mix, and I'll throw in politics without defining it to the mix, where, people are burning the candle on 12 ends. So, we want to be part of the educational world. Podiatry, again, by itself, and the role of the foot and everything that it brings into. I have a colleague, he's the founder of an organization called LEAP, LEAP, Lower Extremity Amputation Prevention.
Mm.
Huge problem in diabetes.
Of course, yeah.
They had to rename type 2 diabetes because of how many children we were seeing to adult onset. This is a gigantic problem. A lot of it is diet. A lot of it is where is, again, the PE program for kids. So with all the progress we're making that I'm bragging to you about, we're treading water, and we need lots of attention, of awareness. Again, whether it's the magazines, gosh, it's hard to find an actual magazine in this day and age because, everything is like virtual. But those are the combinations that I add to the realm of the sports doctor. I'm part of an organization called the Publicity Summit. Originally, they were across the street from Madison Square Garden, Bradley Communications. We'd bring together Meet the Media. So we would be, as part of the media, maybe you would be speed dated by an author or a doctor or an entrepreneur or an editor on why they might be on your show. And this has exploded a talent pool that really, really has amazed me in so many areas. And again, mental recovery, these kinds of challenges, anxiety, awareness. It's the biggest topic in our country is mental health.
Yeah. So Bob, if you could have a perfect world as you define it, what would that look like?
It's the new medicine, again, awareness of the new medicine. It is a healthcare system that takes care of all of us. Whatever we got to figure out, having the anxiety that you can go bankrupt or your parents could go bankrupt is so being covered for that, without that worry. Every advanced country in the world, the idea that you would be, again, including the fact of the importance of reducing stress, of rest and recovery, both physically and mentally, and paying big attention to that. So again, where we would have a situation where you would have much more cooperation somehow, even spiritually. The best athletes in the world today include spirituality. They're not hung up on religion. Organized religion, good luck to you.
Right.
It's more adversarial than anything else. But spiritually, there's a higher power. All of these other things are a tremendous weapon, whether it's with, trying to live one day to the other. So I would, again, include the awareness and the reduction of pressure and sharing. If we could just buy into, in the perfect world, again, I have a very famous colleague, series of books called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Of course.
They're profound.
Yeah.
And they're about 3 principles of all of it, 9 books, 3 principles. Perfect world, having fun with it. They're very simple. Think about it. Number 1, we're all one. Somehow, can you get off killing each other? Somehow, can you get off this, that you don't know how to get along? Number 2, there's enough. Whether it's food, whether it's money, whether it's sunshine, there's enough. If we could somehow not have 1,000 children a day dying of hunger because we don't know how the hell to share it.
We don't know how to distribute to them.
Yes. And number 3 is there's nothing we have to do. Again, this is, part of the Conversations with God thinking. which is everybody's going to heaven. There's no such thing as death. Get off it already. There's not a vengeful, God who's after us. We're born in sin. It's all a lot of baloney. We have to have a different definition of what that means to us. Again, number one, we're all one. Number two, there's enough, everybody. And number three, don't shoot me because you got to rob me. Go to, you know what I mean? I legalize drugs tomorrow. I would take the money out of it. You're out of business, cartel. If you want heroin, go to a clinic. We'll pay attention to it. You can get a clean needle. You'll get therapy if you need. So that would be the perfect world if somehow, according to Conversations with God, we are primitive.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how to stop killing each other. So again, at the top level, you want to throw in sports medicine. We're trying to have fun. We're trying to include being as ageless and as timeless as we can. 80's the new 60, 60's the new 50. Then we want to pay big attention to the physical side. What's your medical history? Pay attention. And again, number two, which is to learn how to at least include that you are including movement and that you are paying attention to the mental game. And then we do the best we can. Then I'll be flip a coin, raise a glass.
Well, you said in the very beginning, what I call the five spokes of the wheel when we talk about nutrition and stress management and movement. And but there was one that I wanted to add in there that I think is very much evident in the blue zones where Dan Buettner, has written his book, and there's so much research now on these centenarians. And why are they what they are? Well, those few principles you've already mentioned, but then they always add community connection. So,
and tennis was number one, of all sports. The people, it's an amazing who figured they would come up with these stats.
mm-hmm.
But the sport that allows the longest longevity is tennis. It's racket sports where you have maybe a teammate, you have socialization, you have all these areas that become important. And I think I'm glad you added that because it's such a main component. But again, these people have learned to live off the land nutritionally.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned they needed to walk to wherever they were going.
Right.
They included being on real surfaces, again, where you were barefoot.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, we need to look back and include those principles.
Well, of course, ancient wisdom very often is neglected, and yet it's timeless. Yeah, we talk about ageless and timeless.
That's why it had the Taoist on from the Netherlands. Exactly. We were talking about Lao Tzu, who wrote again the famous book, and timeless and 2,500 years ago, whatever the heck it was.
Right.
And the what was the name of that book? How could that escape me?
I don't know. That was one of the most famous.
Yes. Well, famous, it'll hit us. We'll write to you, everybody, if you email me.
Right. Well, add that in.
Yes. But it was, again, the fact of these important interactions of people, the importance, again, of communication are as important today as they were 2,500 years ago. And sometimes it's amazing that as primitive as we might have been. But if someone was to say to you, again, a part of conversations with God, we're hung up on what's right and what's wrong, instead of saying, would you please include what works?
Mm-hmm.
Would you think about that also? It's an interesting concept, but I've had caregivers on my show. You know that there are 13 million, give or take a few, caregivers, sandwich generation people, taking care of their parents and their children,
mm-hmm.
both financially and again, or medically. So again, we get back to, my friends with the senior citizens and the baby boomers, the idea of community. In many of these old cultures, they stress, I'll tell you who should be taking care of your children. They're the grandparents who have the wisdom,
Right.
not the parents who are all of a sudden, their parents are 22 years old and they haven't grown up yet themselves.
Right.
So, again, when you talk about some of these ancient themes, people lived in clusters. They didn't know from big cities and where you didn't know who was living next door to you or whatever. So but I have confidence in 3 to 5 generations from now, Michelle. I think it's going to take that long. That's why we couldn't accept people who many times are talking about some of these kinds of theories. They want to get into government, and people don't want to hear about it because they think they're too spiritual in one way or the other. So I include that world a big time when we're talking the top of sports and athletics again and again. That mindfulness. Can you forget that last shot you hit in golf where you're a pro and you're going to the next hole? Can you be in the moment? You could train for it, and that surprises a lot of people.
There's a great saying that the past is a canceled check, the present, the future is a promissory note, and the present is a gift, which is why it's called the present. And so
but it's much easier said than done. That's what we have to get. Well, there are methods to train those systems.
Yeah.
For you, your parents, your children, in order to pay attention, even if somebody's saying, sit by yourself 10 minutes a day, just relax and try to tone down. I had visualization with my young figure skaters 25 years ago, and the sports world thought it was voodoo.
Well, remember those books, The Inner Golf and The Inner Tennis, Galway, Timothy Galway?
Dr. Jim Vickery, Mind Golf.
Mind Golf
is the name of his book. Exactly. Golf was way ahead in the area of sports psychology when it came, one of my guests, and ironically, his last name was Calloway, Paul Calloway. So he's not Calloway Golf.
Right.
But Paul Calloway is a physical therapist, mental trainer, who was the first physical therapist on the golf wagon with the Jack Nicklaus's and the Arnold Palmers and whatever. And again, none of these golfers were people who did strengthening. They played more golf.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the kinds of educations that made a huge difference. And the mental thing you just said, again, where can you be in the present? Guy that paid huge attention. I'll tell you who tried to teach Tiger Woods that was Paul Calloway. Tiger Woods came by the Western tournament every year when he was a kid, and Calloway would say to him again, don't run sprints with weighted vests and trying to be a Navy SEAL. You're going to get hurt. And he wouldn't listen to us. And he wanted to be a Navy SEAL and lift weights and get all involved. And it was one problem after another. He ended up with his back and his knees, etc. And it's an education. Again, you see a golfer, the guy is 6'5". Everybody hits the ball 350 yards. Every place kicker now kicks 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw that. Mm-hmm. It's all in, again, these athletic abilities. So again, remember, everybody, straighten your feet and ankles and work balance.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, that's a good way for us to end because I
elude it. I'm not saying be a maniac. Yeah. Learn how to use rubber bands. Yeah. Learn how to balance like on the Bosu.
Yeah.
What's called the look up sand dune stepper. It's magical, where it simulates being on the sand, strengthening your toes. I'll leave it with this. Have you ever heard the term Van Cliburn, the famous pianist?
Yeah.
That was Gaida's thing. Try strengthen your feet. Are we ending it on that note?
Well, I want to end on a high note. So what would you want to share with the audience? I obviously just shared some of your wisdom, but what would be the one pearl of wisdom that you would say, I have to let everybody here know?
Include the new medicine. Think about it.
Which is really functional medicine.
Yes, it is. Functional medicine, the term didn't exist.
Okay.
Now it exists because the people are looking for causes. What about that? Including it? Smart. Again, so include your own personal history.
Yeah.
And if you want to start a new activity, get your body ready for it.
Yeah.
Including your upper body, hand, wrist, elbow. You want to play pickleball, and including again, and your son or daughter is playing sports. Pay big attention to including. Go to a physical therapy group. Learn a home program that includes foot ankle balance. You'll be 2 steps quicker. Pay attention to orthotics if you've got foot, ankle, lower extremity history, especially if you're a female and you got knee problems.
And you've worn high heels like most of the women I know.
40% of the women I see, we have what's called a dress orthotic, which is a device that can be used in low heels, boots, flats. Everybody go to the sportsdoctorradio.com. You'll find out whatever you want to pay attention to, and we'll be glad to come back in the future. Again, we like to add the sports doctors in segments where people have very important audiences. We're all trying to get the word out. And again, about the three things we talked about: awareness, education, taking action. So it's been fun, Michelle.
Well, there it is, the 3 A's, right? Well, AEA, awareness, education, and action.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And again, Michelle was a guest on my show. Check her out.
Yeah, well, you've been great. And Dr. Weil, I think everybody wants to, after this show, is going to want to talk to you, because there isn't a person I know that doesn't want to be better at whatever they do. There's very few people that are not, at least have some competitive spirit.
And I got news for you. When I showed you the fun book, hashtag Hey Sports Parents, the next one's going to be hashtag Hey Sports Grandparents.
Oh, cool.
People with their children, their grandchildren. Again, youth sports is such a big deal. Remember what I said? There's an epidemic of overuse.
Yeah.
So many times, again, the sports doctor's in is about having a plan that includes all these aspects to stay out of trouble and enhance performance. And that's what we're all about.
Can people get your book on Amazon? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, they can. The sports, hashtag Hey Sports Doctor is still available on Amazon. And again, then you go to bbsradio.com/the sports doctor, and you can listen to the past show. Listen to the one with Michelle. She was great.
You're a great.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much for taking a good hour with us today and sharing your pearls of wisdom. And
hey, the sports doctor's in. How can I help you?
Yeah, 44 years of that. I mean, you can't argue the
give it take a few weeks
longevity and expertise. All right, Bob. Take care.
You